during the session. Okay. Pick them up during the session and answer them when we have a chance. And again, we are recording. I think there was just a notification of that, so we can make these sessions available later. Okay. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first workshop on this of the series on setting sustainability goals. The initial presentation was last month, which is also recorded, and just kind of walked through the steps of starting a project and setting out on a path as a firm towards doing more sustainable work. Our session next month in May will be focused a little more on sustainability action plans, which and setting firm sustainability goals, which I just mentioned a moment ago. So this, as I mentioned, this workshop is focused on setting goals at the outset of projects, and just to run through the learning objectives. Last month we talked about what SMART sustainability goals are, how they apply to projects. And our goal tonight, as we get into the breakout sessions, will be to talk about, to try to identify some goals for a hypothetical or real project, kind of center the discussion around that, and set measurable goals and achievable goals that we can pursue. And we'll also share some resources towards that effort, to support that effort. So at the end, as I mentioned, we will kind of get into a quick recap of last month's session, just to kind of set the framework for our workshop sessions in a bit. And as part of that, we'll introduce, also the framework for our conversations. And then following the workshops, we'll have a little discussion Q&A period, hear back from the groups. And then we'll close it out a little thereafter. So those of you who are a part of this last month, remember Rob Fleming's analogy of the story of the elephant, the rider, and the path. The elephant representing basic human nature, basic motivations, and the rider being the higher self-intentional motivations, but they need a path. And the goal this evening is to talk about that path and how to shape that path towards projects that achieve higher in terms of sustainability metrics, in terms of overall performance and comfort, and the other aspects of sustainability that we're going to be talking about. So goal setting at the outset of projects is a very important piece of that, to shape that path towards meeting the needs of the project. And one of the things Rob talked about last month was the importance of sitting down with your clients, with your team, and working through different rating systems. These are all ways that to potentially shape that path. Rating systems and frameworks, offer guidance or kind of some bracketing, and some are more holistic than others, but they offer opportunities to kind of organize those discussions. And sometimes that's one of the hardest things, is to get started and to figure out where to get started. And that's one of the goals of our workshops this evening, is to kind of talk about how to set us on that path. And then, as we'll talk about a little more next month, how to expand that across a firm, an office, and try to bring those elements to all of our work. So just a quick recap on what is a SMART sustainability goal. They're specific, making sure they're well defined, measurable. You have a criteria for measuring, tracking your goals. Set goals that are achievable, meaning they are tangible, And we, I think within our group, we're hoping for maybe a little bit more than achievable, suggesting aspirational, ambitious, actionable. That was one of our discussions last month. And then, of course, relevant. We want to make sure that you're looking at sustainability goals that are appropriate to your project. And goals, are kind of bigger concepts. It may not be saying I want to do a green roof. Aligning the goal with your project requirements that a green roof would make sense if water conservation was a high priority of your project, a real kind of important aspect of your project. But don't come with preconceived ideas. Kind of look at your project holistically, and kind of try to find the most relevant, the most impactful goals. And then time bound. You give yourself and your team deadlines, or at least periodic checkpoints to kind of look at your progress towards those goals. So how do we write goals? As I mentioned, it includes values and goals conversations with your clients and your stakeholders, but really identifying the core principles that define those goals, and then identifying strategies, tangible design strategies, design approaches that serve those goals, and getting the whole team on the same page is also a very important step. Making sure that everybody understands those goals, communicating those goals across your team. And then, as we mentioned, you want to set measurable goals, benchmarking and setting targets, and we'll get into kind of means to do that. Also very important in terms of how we actually kind of evaluate our performance towards meeting these goals. So I'm actually sharing, this is a chart that comes from Rob Fleming's book about tangible goals versus more subjective goals, and targets such as 66% water reduction. That's a very specific goal, and then a strategy to achieve that. So this is kind of a table, without going through it, that kind of highlights that framework. And then, as we mentioned, there are a number of systems out there, certification pathways that can help set a framework for these discussions at the outset of projects. We're going to focus today on the AIA framework for design excellence, which is also the basis for the COAT Top 10, kind of came out of the COAT Top 10 awards evaluation. But the lead checklist, I think many of us are familiar with, doing lead charrettes at the beginning of projects. And then there's the Living Building Challenge, Passive House, and resources like the 2030 palette as well, which are definitely tied to the 2030 commitment and all this whole discussion. So, as I mentioned, we're going to, for the purpose of today's workshop, kind of a little hands-on discussion, we're going to use the framework for design excellence as our framework. And for those who may be new to the framework for design excellence, it's based around 10 principles, 10 measures of sustainability, if you will, and it starts with a series of questions. And then kind of gets into strategies to evaluate, to pursue those goals, and it's not meant to be complicated. Excuse me. It's meant to be accessible and relevant for every project, every architect, whether you're going for LEED Platinum or some other high aspirational certification. There's pieces of this that you can take onto your project regardless. Excuse me. So obviously the 10 measures would be a little bit daunting to try to address in one evening. So What we've done is we've paired kind of similar or symbiotic measures from the framework for design excellence, and tried to kind of we're going to break into 4 groups, color coded here, kind of based on those discussions. And I don't know, Jonky, how that survey is breaking down, but if everyone's interested in 3 groups, then we'll do 3 groups, but we'll get to that in a second. But basically, the framework for design excellence is kind of sets up questions in these 10 areas: design for integration, community, ecology, water, economy, energy, wellness, resources, change, and discovery. And as you get into each of those measures, they're kind of set up around a set of central questions. In this case, design for ecosystems, how can the design support ecological health of its place over time? Is the first question. But then getting into topics that kind of break down the answers to these big questions. And also I'll mention, each of these categories is set up with a series of high impact strategies. So, and usually poses the question, if you can only do one or a few things, what can you take on your project? We'll get into this in our groups, but then looking at best practices, resources, excuse me, and then some case study projects, which you can certainly use as a reference. So Jonky, I think that's, oh, and then I will mention before we move into the sessions too, another piece of this framework for design excellence is it's become the kind of underpinning for a lot of AIA design awards, or the common application for awards. So a lot of them are kind of, the AIA has identified this framework as kind of central to their awards and the definition of design excellence in 2022. And a couple of other members of our team, Jonathan and Sherman's in particular, have done a lot towards advocating for that in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, and it's and I know that work has carried over to a lot of other AIA chapters as well. So, Jonky, I think at this point, are we ready to try to split into the groups? And
so I'm going to release the breakout rooms, and I'm going to leave it so that you can join the ones that you selected. The only reason why we did the poll was we wanted to make sure that we had enough people interested in each session. So I just have a question for the water and ecosystems group, like that are interested in that. We'll have a smaller group for that. Jonathan, what do you think? Should we move forward with that, or should we split it into 3 groups instead? Do we still have Jonathan?
Yeah. Sorry, I'll defer to you, Jonky, on whichever way you want to go. I'm happy to lead a small group, or we can also merge.
Okay. I'm okay with the smaller group if you are. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to open all rooms and go from there.
So just give us a minute while.
Yeah. So
Jonky
you'll have
works her
to
magic.
choose. Well, no, it's like you have to choose which breakout room.
Oh,
So
I
each
see.
one
Okay.
is named. And I'm going to stick around for a little bit and just migrate people over if they haven't done so. So Josh, if you could actually stop sharing, that would also help. Yep. All right. Or pause sharing. So 2030 group members will also have to go in to your individual groups. Okay. Okay. Okay, oh, we have a couple of people who have not migrated over. Do you need help? If you let me know which room you want to go to, I can move you to that room. Aishu, Frank.
That
Yep,
was
I'm
fun
here.
to get to know that tool. It's a great tool if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
To migrate to the restroom, but
Frank, do you need help getting to a room?
I'm here.
Oh, sorry, this is not, this is the, like, the main space. You need to get to a breakout room depending on
I'm
what group
sorry.
you want to join.
Water was is
Okay.
fine. Yeah, sorry.
All right, so I'll move you
And
over there.
I'd like to go to energy and
Okay.
thank you.
Steve, is there a place you want to go? And Gerald? Gerald, Steve?
Hello, hello.
Hey, so we're breaking out into breakout rooms. Is there a room you'd like to go to? So either it's equitable.
There was energy and the environment.
Energy. Okay, I'll move you over there. See you in a bit. Gerald? Okay. I think we got everybody out of the breakout rooms.
Very abrupt.
All right. Sorry,
That's
it's only
okay.
let me give me 60-second
No, I
warning.
appreciate it.
But that's why I did the alert. I should have done a 5-minute alert. Like, guys, you got
No,
5
no,
more
no,
minutes.
no.
Sorry.
So, no, it was good. It was good.
Send in an extraction team. Okay, Sean.
So I guess we're using this time to do some quick takeaways from the individual breakout rooms. Anyone want to go first? Energy.
Yeah, we can start. I'm still live. So no, we had a good group, and I enjoyed talking about residential a little more than I get to in my daily life. But I think we spent a lot of time talking about envelope, which I think Laura was kind of sharing the experiences on the residential side about the importance of sealing your envelopes on residential projects, and how critical that is, if not the most critical thing. And I was giving some kind of commercial examples of existing buildings and such, where sealing was one of the most effective, impactful strategies that we could use to improve our project. So. And I don't want to take up the whole time. I know, Shabay, did you want to add anything, or any of the members of our group? We were kind of finishing on resiliency and starting to talk about climate shifting and some other topics along those lines.
Yeah, we kind of got cut off with Elizabeth. Do you have a couple more sentences to add to your point?
I certainly can if the whole group is willing. I'm Elizabeth. I'm with Bala Consulting Engineers, so a little bit on the more engineering side, but we were talking about resilience, and we just did a really cool study recently looking at our HVAC systems and how they would hold up to different temperatures all the way through 2050. For to the end of some of the main equipment's lifespan, and we looked at not only just would it hold up, is it going to work, is it not, how would you have to run the building differently if you were in some of those peak heating days and all that kind of stuff. And so it just was a really interesting study to do, and something we also considered was the heat island effect, which I think often we sometimes or forget about, we're just taking the, the temperature data we have from the nearest airport or the nearest, main checkpoint. And we don't realize that if we're designing in the city, it can be, anywhere from 8 to 20 degrees hotter, depending on where you are. And so we did a really cool study around that. And I was just going to tell people about it. So thank you for giving me another two seconds to say that.
Yeah, we talk about insulating walls and renovations projects for both residentials, and we also talk about how you can improve glazings, and that's about what we talked about. Yep.
Thanks, Shabay, Josh. Bunny and Paul, you guys want to go next with resources and well-being?
Sure. We were we had a good discussion, talking about how do we we talked about specific issues with that each of the people had. Like Roshni, for example, was one of the goals that I guess, I don't know if it's our personal goal, is to how do we get balconies in multifamilies? Now, what would be good strategies for affecting them? And we backed up a little bit and said, okay, well, A balcony is a private space. So what's a bigger goal? You know, is the biggest goal to have private spaces for everybody, and then a balcony is a way to sort of affect that goal. Of course, the pushback is, yeah, but balconies cost money. And so we talked a little bit about you know, potential ways to address issues that some of the project team, or maybe it's on the owner's team, or maybe it's the financial team, may have. Navaz was talking about a K through 12 school, and one of their specific issues was security and safety related to Windows, and we talked about, you know, what are the you know, it ended up talking about what are the other things that Windows can do, and how can you address those issues. I think one of the points I made is sometimes a lot of the decisions depend on who's in the room. If the security, if the owner's security person is in the room, security is going to be what you talk about. And so, you know, Bunny pointed out that, you know, sometimes those soft skills on how do you manage a meeting and manage the decision makers is equally or maybe even more important than sometimes the decisions that are made. And Emily was talking about a small renovation of a lab to, or from a blanking on this.
Medical building from
Right.
a classroom to a exam space.
Right. And the concern about indoor air quality. And what are some of the ways that you could sort of improve indoor air quality from a design standpoint, and who might make those decisions and help with them. I think in general, one of the things is that, you know, it's clear that there are synergistic relationships between all of the goals, and that I know it's even, you know, especially if found looking through the frameworks website and looking at the projects, which as in examples for successful implementation of multiple goals, is that, you know, of course, each of those projects they might focus on things like equity or well-being, but they hit a lot of the marks on all of the goals. And I just want to say that, you know, the website is a great resource for solutions, you know, from design solutions, which the architects have control over mostly, versus other solutions which the architects may not have control over.
Awesome. I feel like we should have put the resources and well-being group with energy and resiliency for a second. There was a lot of, and when we get to our water group, we have some overlap with resiliency too, but there's also cross connection across the teams, even though we kind of had it divided according to the individual groups. Bunny, did you want to add anything? Or
No, I think that covered it. But I
okay.
I always like to say that the framework divisions are like sort of arbitrary, but they're really helpful in being able to categorize and make sure you're covering sort of all the aspects of sustainability.
Sherman, do you want to talk about your equitable communities group?
Well, okay, we had a small group session and talking about how to discuss some of the issues and set goals for community engagement when you're not the prime contract, you know, for design contract, if you're a consultant, and how to have that kind of discussion depending on, you know, of course, your relationship with the firm that you're working with. And what the appropriate level of community engagement is. If it's a large project, it can be a big group. If it's a smaller project, it can be smaller. And consider access mobility is one thing, but considering access to all kinds of people. There was an example of a community center or an outdoor facility. Can everybody get to it? Can they get to it now or in the future? What kind of paths can you make that aren't just minimum ADA requirement, but really engage the whole community? And in terms of economy, we talked about ways to like multiple use spaces and right size the spaces as a kind of a goal that the measures the framework really stresses as a tool, as a goal to get to economy. And of course, selecting systems and materials. That architects have a big role in that, and there's a lot that we can do to evaluate different kinds of materials and make expert suggestions to the teams. And now there are some more tools, whether it's the EC3 guide or this new. I actually jumped out of the box a bit and showed the group the Kaleidoscope tool that was just given an AIA award. That's a very exciting visual graphic way to evaluate embodied carbon with a whole range of exterior wall systems and ways to look at it. So again, that's something that we can bring to the table as designers that can help the team to address economy and community engagement and make some goals that can be smart. That's what we want to do, right? Okay.
Awesome. And Jonathan, do you want to do our groups, or I can do? You're on mute.
Yeah, someone had to be that guy. I can try. Yeah, we had a really good conversation. I think as Jonky was saying, we started out, we tried to cover everyone's groups because as we talked about ecosystems, it helped us. We started, Frank started talking about water and flooding and floodplain and all of that. So that gets into resiliency, and we talked about carbon and everything. But I think where we got to, if I'm sort of summarizing a little bit, is really the idea that a lot of times the water and ecosystems, they're very, very place specific, right? So that really the key part to it is setting one of the goals is to do an assessment and really state the priorities for that specific site. And we had the luxury of having folks in our group from California, from Arizona, and from the Northeast as well. So there's some very, very different strategies associated. So we heard about, the issues in Arizona, which has been in a drought for as long as anyone can remember. California, that has the wildfires and the drought and the flooding and the loss of snowpack, and then of course the Northeast and New York and Philly, where there's the hurricanes and the Sandys and the Idas and the too much water kind of thing. So I think with both of those, it's really critical to set those targets very, very locally, because the target for the project in Arizona is going to be drastically different than the target we might do in New York City. So that's really sort of was a highlight. I sort of thought, at least with the ecosystems, that it makes sense to start with saying, could you set a target that is 100% native plantings? Because the anecdote, the phrase I told in our group was that my friend said, the weeds are the plants that grow better on your site than the plants you pick for your site, because they were there before you got there and they're going to be there after you're gone. So if you think about the native plants, no matter where you are, the native plants are the ones that are for that, that ecosystem. So what did I miss? Gang, please jump in.
I think that captured it well.
Great job, boss.
Josh, should we share the closeout slides? I think we have 2 more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can do that. I'm trying to find that again. Got too many windows open.
Sorry. I think I closed it on my end.
Okay, I think I'm there. Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's see, am I sharing yet? Yes,
Yes, you
I
are.
think I am. Okay, well, I think we just did the report out and Q&A. So just a couple of, I guess this is an animation, isn't it? Okay, so just a couple of.
Forgot to change that.
That's okay. Like it's moving. So just a couple of reminders about upcoming series and sessions. So next month, we're going to continue the discussion about sustainability goals, but expand that to, I guess, more global, firm-wide, practice-wide goals, office-wide goals, and how to set those. We'll talk about sustainability action plans and definitely look forward to I'm sure some of the same input from folks who are kind of pursuing sustainability as kind of as a core part of their practice, but also those of us who are trying to kind of bring that into our work as a more central goal. And then I guess, Janki, it's starting in June, we're going to do
Embodied carbon in
embodied carbon,
practice.
and similarly set up a series of workshops supporting that. And then later in the year, pick up the
Energy modeling.
which is always one of the more popular topics to talk about, and one of the more important topics in terms of measuring our carbon footprint and our carbon reduction. So just a couple of general items. Our group, the Philadelphia AIA COAT Committee, we have a monthly meeting. I think it's the third Thursday of the month. The next one is April 21st. I guess we couldn't hit Earth Day quite, but it's there's often a session, a brief presentation at the beginning of those meetings. We also have 5 subcommittees. This session, is the 2030 commitment group, and I think we meet once a month on different days: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and as you can see, a very active policy and advocacy group, and have been really pushing on trying to kind of expand our knowledge and advocacy towards environmental justice issues. We have a group that works on design, looks at design, has been developing our design awards forms, and then a really active waste reduction group, zero waste group that's done a lot of great work over the last couple of years. And I think is at the end of the slides there, Chunky. So I just want to thank all of you for joining us, and thank all of our facilitators for helping run these sessions and taking a deeper dive into these measures and helping us determine, find sustainability goals for our projects. It's as we've mentioned, it's one of the hardest things is to figure out where to start. So hopefully we've provided some direction on that, some resources at least, and I think for all of us it's a never-ending task. And Janki, I'll let you or anyone else jump in.
Good. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.